on camera, do y'all? Y'all don't want that. No? All right. Y'all just share. Like, just chill out, y'all. You have any children?
Not yet. No.
All right. Cool.
No.
Still living that good life then.
Every moment.
All right, so I got a couple of screens here. So I've got I'm gonna pull up your profile, and so just so that we can have a couple of talking. All right, everybody, if y'all have any questions, I see a few of them coming in. Go ahead and drop those questions into the chat for comfort, and we're gonna try to make this as amazing as possible and harass the people in our WhatsApp group and let them know that they're missing out. All right, let's see. So we're recording, and we're recording system audio too. So
yeah, I'm just listening to it. I do want to try my phone up here, but I can't.
Is that Sunny?
Oh shoot! I'm sorry.
It's cool. All right. How do I make sure that I've got you pinned and not everybody else? Well, actually, I don't want to allow people telling me themselves. All right. Still trying to figure this out, so just bear with me. I'm trying to see how I can make sure that your screen doesn't go anywhere. Spotlight for everyone. Continue. There we go. Cool. All right. So I think I'm ready to get started. The other thing I was meant to do was pull up your page. All right, for everyone who just joined us, if you guys have any questions, you can drop them into the chat. I will get to those questions here shortly as we go through our chat. So once again, we're here with Comfort. She's an Agile delivery lead. Comfort, is it okay if I tell folks where you work at, or do you want to not disclose that?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. So she's an Agile delivery lead for Capital One. And I was introduced to her through a mutual friend and Agile colleague. And so I just wanted to speak with her, get kind of her feedback and her experience in this Agile world, and see, what her take on it is. So Comfort, welcome to the interview, and again, thank you for your time. And so I wanna kick off our interview by asking you, so when did you fall in love with Agile?
I think I would say the very first class that I took for Agile.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little bit of background about myself. I went to KSU here in Kennesaw, Georgia.
Sure.
I was going for a bachelor's in business communications,
Mm-hmm.
with an in public relations. So
Mm-hmm.
this was not originally where I thought I was going to be, like most people that are Agilists.
Mm-hmm.
But once I graduated, I really started looking at life objectively. So I knew I wanted to do something in IT because I knew that's where we were going. But I just didn't know what. So I started my master's in project management. What is it called? Information systems management.
Sure.
Emphasis in project management.
Mm-hmm.
But after taking a couple of IT courses and project management courses, I literally was bored out of my mind. And I just didn't like how strict the PMP project management was, the traditional project management.
Sure.
So I remember having an honest conversation with with Nimi and one of my other friends and my counselor at the time. And my counselor literally told me, I think you need to take an Agile course because it's the same thing as project management. It's just with a little twist. So literally after taking that class, I said, that's it for my master's journey. I'm dropping out of it. I'm not going to collect any more loans. I'm just going to wing it. because most people in that industry would tell you we're just now getting headway in the market and companies are slowly adapting to it. So this is the perfect time to get in because most people don't even know what the role is. So I went in and that was just the first time I fell in love with it.
Sure. And so after you took the class and you fell in love with it, what was the journey like for you to become a delivery lead up until this point?
Oh, oh wow. It was a lot. So after I took that class, I then decided that, okay, I know for sure I want to do Scrum Master. I still didn't know what it was, but I had friends that either were doing it or heard about it or at least understood to a certain extent what it meant, or at least knew the certification. So I decided to start doing my own research, YouTube, Google, talking to different people. And then I decided one day I'm just going to go ahead and Scrum Alliance and get the certification. Whether I know it or not, at least the certification will get me one step ahead. So I went ahead and got my certification. Once I did that, I started speaking to my manager at work, and he honestly told me, in order for you to pursue this, you'll probably have to leave the company. And I thought he was crazy. At that point, telling somebody who just graduated from college, this is your first job. I was working at Bank of America at the time, and the role that I was in was a pilot role. So coincidentally, a friend of mine who's a recruiter called me and said, hey, I think you need to get a better job. And there's a pilot role that just opened up at CoStar. And I think you need to apply for the role because it really goes with your personality. So I went ahead and I took that role. Coincidentally, while I was in that role, another pilot role opened up and I asked for the opportunity to jump into that role. Once I got into that role, I was working more with Salesforce. And you know, Salesforce is backed by an IT team internally. We usually get vendors that come in and teach the internal developers how to use it because it's cheaper. So because I was using that system, and it was a new system that would get upgrades all the time. My boss would have to coordinate with the product owner a lot to make sure that we got certain updates because the company had just started a data migration project at that time because they had just gone through an acquisition merger. So once I got in, I quickly realized because I had been certified that they were going through an Agile transformation. But the good thing is I was the only one who was realizing that, right? So I'm very bold. I quickly went to my manager and told her, I think the company's going through an Agile transformation. I'm certified in Scrum, and I think I can help because there's certain gaps that I see need improvements.
Sure.
And who do I need to talk to? So she then said, I think I can put you in contact with her boss. So she put me in contact with her boss. And he then said, I can put you in contact with my colleague, who is the tech director. I spoke to the tech director. He was really impressed. He then said, I'll put you in touch with his manager, who he had just hired at the time. And coincidentally, his manager was trying to figure out a way to bring in a role. And he didn't even know he was looking for a Scrum Master role. He just knew he needed some kind of role that would focus on processes. Right. So when I met with him, I then broke down the role of a Scrum Master from a theoretical perspective. Quickly said, yes, that's what I'm looking for. But he said, from a practical perspective, how would you be able to handle certain things? So he then put me in touch with his leadership team, who is like the tech leads, the product managers, all of them. So we had a roundtable conversation and I literally found myself teaching them about Scrum. We even touched a little bit on SAFe when it comes to enterprise perspective, all that jazz. And I was able to convince them to create a Scrum Master role, the first Scrum Master role that was in the company. They offered me the role, but ultimately I decided to leave the company. One, because the original role that I was in was moving to Virginia and I didn't want to move to Virginia. So I was trying to negotiate with them to keep me in Atlanta, but just pay me what I know a Scrum Master normally would get paid if I was outside of the company. And because they wouldn't budge, I decided I'm just going to leave. So I took a leap of faith and I decided it's the right time for me to go into contracting.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad I did that because I was able to learn so much within a short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a contractor, they literally bring you in as a subject matter expert, and it's up to you to basically pour in knowledge into them because they're bringing you in as an external subject matter expert.
Sure.
So I was able to learn so quick. I was privileged to have been working with people who had been in the industry for 20 years doing Agile. They were here when Agile was like a whisper in the hallway.
Mm-hmm.
I got an opportunity to even work under an RTE who basically made me a proxy RTE. So I was able to see the difference between a train that has already been launched and work with them to launch a train. So after working for my contract, I worked through a consulting company called Apex. After working there, I then decided that, okay, the pandemic hit. Once the pandemic hit, all of the contracts got ended because they had to let go of contractors for budget reasons, right?
First.
Once that happened, I started evaluating the situation and I said, I think maybe it might be safer for me to go back full time just because you never know what's going to happen. So I started interviewing and I got an opportunity to consult. But the reason why I decided to go with Capital One is because I had Nimi at the time was working for Capital One, and she convinced me that they were a very agile forward company.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I remember being very frustrated because I had come from CoStar where they were just brand new. So because they were new, there was so much resistance to a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And then went into consulting, saw a company that had been trying to transition for 6 years, but because of certain things, they just could not transition. And ultimately they were in like a round robin situation where they'll start, stop.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really looking for a company that'll give me the opportunity to be as creative as I could be and would support me in the process of trying to improve processes in place to help improve their delivery efficiencies. So basically, I wanted a company that would let me be an acting Scrum Master.
So you've given us a lot of information. So I want to go back to your first or your second role, technically, right? So as a woman, as a black woman, as a black Nigerian woman in the IT, Cameroonian? Okay. Cameroon used to be part of Nigeria.
Okay.
Right, so we are one and the same, right? So as a black Cameroonian woman in IT, having the boldness to step up and give the input to CoStar as they're going through that transformation, was that scary? Did you feel, especially being someone who's kind of new in the role, like you're not really active in that role yet, but you're stepping up saying, this is what you need. This is what you're going through. Let me stand in the gap and help. Like, was that terrifying for you?
I don't know if I would say it was terrifying, only because the type of person that I am, I believe that if it's worse for me to not try than to worse for me to not try and not know what's going to happen versus try. The worst that I get is rejected. Because just because CoStar says no doesn't mean other people are going to say no. You're always going to have other opportunities. And that was the mindset that I was in at that time. I had nothing to lose. I already had a guaranteed job, but they were asking me to move to Virginia. I didn't want to move. I didn't care what they were going to offer me to move. Probably I was not there, right? When I decided that I was going to pursue the opportunity for them to create the role, I was confident in the relationships that I had built at the company. So I knew that I had people who could speak on my character in case anything happened. And ultimately, I knew that I was confident in myself. That if anything happened, worst case scenario, I'll just find a different job.
You were confident in the relationships that you have built within the company. I want you to speak a little bit to that, because a lot of times people are looking to get a new Scrum Master role or looking to get their first role, and it could be Scrum Master or anything in general. But so many times they're focused on just like the knowledge piece, right? Being able to recite the full Scrum guide in its entirety, and being able to read the Agile Manifesto like it's the Ten Commandments. Like, how important is that human relationship building piece to this process?
Number one. And I'm an Agile coach now, and that is the number one thing that I tell all of my students. Anybody, I can put my high school cousin in a Scrum course, and they're going to pass the certification like this.
Sure.
I could coach them to get a job, and they could get a job like this. But keeping the job is the relationship aspect that is missing in the training when you go to get the certification. And that's why you need Agile coaches. Because I always tell people, yes, we're working in IT, but we are the process aspect of the organization, right? You have product who's focusing on the business, money-making aspect. Right. How do we look? How do we retain customers? How do we keep our paychecks going? You have IT who is thinking about the systems, the applications. How do we keep the business floating? Right. How do we keep products being able to, how do we keep the machine running, right? Then you have us, we come in and say, okay, you're focused on the computer, you're focused on the money to make sure we get our paychecks. Sure. But who's focused on making sure that we're all working together? I want to take a step back and
talk about, again, being a Black female in this industry. Tell me about any instances that you faced, discrimination or people not respecting your abilities because of who you are.
Yeah. So I will say that for me, I think I had at least two things against me. And I will preface this by saying I'm Cameroonian. I moved to the States when I was 8. I moved to Omaha, Nebraska. So to me, diversity was, I didn't really understand the word diversity until I moved to the South, because the racist nature of people is more pronounced in the South versus up north. Well, in the Midwest, I'll say that. So once I got, and on top of that, I grew up sheltered, right? So there's a lot that I had to learn, specifically in my professional journey, that was very shocking when it came to me, right? So when I was at CoStar, well, just like you said, the fact that being a Black woman or just a Black person in general already puts you at a certain level compared to your peers. That to me was already weird. Like, I remember arguing with somebody at work during the CoStar situation. When I decided that I wanted to pursue the opportunity, I was shocked that most of the people that were discouraging me were the Black people, because they were scared that I was going to lose my job because I was speaking up, because what they had experienced, right? Then here I come, I'm like, racism, what? About, we're all here getting paid the same thing. What? Oh, he's not gonna listen to you? The worst he's gonna tell me is no, whatever, I'll just go somewhere else. Like, I felt like I was getting more discouragement from them versus my white counterparts. Now, granted, I was a little bit naive, but it wasn't until I got to the position of me negotiating for the role that things started to click for me, right? Because like I said, I was very naive, but not just that, but sometimes I had a situation at Anthem when I was contracting, and the IT director was a white guy. And at first, I like I said, I was naive going into it. I didn't really think about that aspect. It literally took somebody coming to me and saying, I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but I mean, it's a known fact that that's how he is. And this was a white person that said this. So it literally took me aback, because naturally, being a woman in this industry, you're still going into IT, and it's a male dominated industry. Absolutely. It is. Even when you look at the development teams, I'm currently on a development team where one of my teams is all men, and me and my product owner and my tech lead, who, first off, this is the second women tech lead engineer that I have ever worked with, and there are not that many in the industry. I can say that.
Right.
So the fact that she's leading a team of all men is already a challenge, because I've already had to resolve a conflict with her and a misogynistic SME. And it really opens your eyes to a lot of the challenges that you hear about, even if you haven't experienced it in your personal life.
Yeah, I think a lot of times our people, Black people, minorities in the workplace, they're more concerned with preserving their job because they feel like they're not supposed to be there anyway, right? And so kind of the attitude is, let's go in, let's keep our heads down, let's keep quiet and not get in trouble so that we don't get fired or we don't get in trouble. And for surely my attitude has always been like, I'm going in to cause trouble, right? I'm going in to I don't want to say make a name for myself, but make it be known that I'm here, right? I'm not willing to kowtow or be scared for anyone because, you know, my attitude has always been corporate needs me, even when I was not working as a Scrum Master, when I was in sales. I'm not willing to be anybody's, you know, slave or subservient or take disrespect just because I want your money, right? I know how to, you know, money comes freely to me, so I don't need to be here per se. So it's good. It's good to hear that. So in the first Agile Transformation that you were working on at CoStar, is that's a real estate company? Commercial. Okay. So in that role,
no, commercial real estate.
How do you feel like you performed in the Agile Transformation when you joined?
So I will say I didn't get the opportunity to actually go through the transformation with them because I left. The experience that I did get working with Agile Transformation was through Anthem when I worked through Apex. And if I had to describe that transformation with one word, I would say stressful. The most stressful part about going through an Agile transformation is the resistance from people that don't understand the value of what you're trying to do with the transformation. So you deal with a lot of redundant arguments, a lot of pushback, unnecessary pushback. I dare to say even sometimes sabotage, because they feel like you're coming to get them fired. Because I have to say, the number one mistake that people make when they're doing Agile transformations is they don't take the time to one, educate the people on the change that they're trying to push, because it is change management.
Absolutely.
Human beings, naturally, we are resistant to change. That's just how human beings are. I don't care how receptive you think you are. If somebody comes to your job that knows nothing about what you do on a day-to-day basis and tries to tell you to do X, Y, and Z a different way because it'll make more sense, you're going to be offended, right? So I when I got there, I found they put me on a difficult team because I like I said, my personality is bold. So with the tech lead, and that's another thing, your personality is really going to be your number one tool in this job, because you have to know how to deal with people. Yes, you're doing project management, but you're not looking at it from the traditional project management of numbers, dates, and what is it, cost, time, and quality. You're not just looking at it from that perspective. You're also looking at it from the people's perspective. That's why we do retrospectives, because we need feedback, right? If I'm trying something and it's not working, let me know in a constructive and respectful manner. Right? Because we want to hear from you. We want to see what works, what doesn't work, so that we can continuously evolve, because guess what? The world around us is evolving. So we have to evolve as human beings. And I think people in traditional companies are suffering because of that evolution piece. And that's why even since the pandemic, you have employees like Capital One, for example, who are, they're really, really stressing on psychological safety and empathy, emotional intelligence, to make sure that the employees understand that, yes, we're here to make money, but we also need you to be your best, right? In order for you to perform, so that we can all go home with a check at the end of the day.
Tell me about when you're advising the students that you coach, right? What is kind of the biggest hurdle that many of them have to overcome as they're maybe moving from not necessarily having worked in an agile environment to getting ready to start working in one? What is normally the biggest struggle that they have to overcome?
Themselves. Most of the time I have to, like I said, work with it. It's easy to get the certification, y'all. It really is. You're literally going to class, you're basically memorizing something, and you're going to take a test on it, right? The hardest part is looking at how you are going to implement that. But before you go and ask somebody to implement something, you have to not only understand it yourself, but you have to embody it and then be confident enough to regurgitate it. So I do a lot of my coaching is a little bit abstract in the sense of I use myself as a sounding board. So instead of me telling you what to do, I basically allow you to express how you think you would do it if you were in a situation. And 9 out of 10 people are correct. They're just fighting themselves because they're not confident in their approach. So I usually have to coach people on understanding the principles and values, but everybody's way of doing Scrum and Agile is different. You can just see it by the different companies that you go into. Like tonight, I heard something about less huge. This overly complicated framework. I'm
so
like,
the first organization,
you guys are just giving me stress by listening to this.
Well,
I can't.
say the first. One of the last organizations I worked at was an organization that was doing less and less huge, and definitely it sounds convoluted when people try to explain it, but if people follow it like the way it's prescribed, if you can understand it, then it's not that bad. But the problem is, like, you can have a perfect system, and as soon as you implement or you introduce imperfect humans to the system, it's all gonna blow up and it's gonna go wrong and it's gonna be implemented wrong. So that's less is crazy. I also wanted to speak a little bit about what you talked about when you said you've got to keep the people informed when you're going through an agile transformation. The first company I was at that was going through an agile transformation, I was on a team, and one day they sent half of the team. Well, let me be really honest. They sent 7 out of 9 people on the team to a training, and the only 2 black people on the team didn't get to go to the training. Okay? When those people came back from that, I don't know if it was a 2, 3, 4 day training, they told us that you guys are going to have to meet every morning at this time for 15 minutes. And I was like, why do I need to start coming into work early? I don't understand. It doesn't make sense, right? And so it wasn't until a month in that they told us we were on a Scrum team. We were doing Scrum. This is the Scrum Master. We're literally in this meeting with the guy who was essentially our equal. But now we've got one, we didn't know at the time, product owner telling us the work that we needed to do, and another guy, Scrum Master, attempting to hold us accountable and get us to follow a framework and do demos and have retros. And we're sitting here looking like, what's going on, right? And so I can only imagine, because I've seen it happen at other organizations, when everyone isn't brought up to speed at the same time, and people aren't kept in the loop about what's going on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Or even if they are told that they're going through a transformation, they aren't educated on it. So I literally had a tech lead tell me to my face,
Right.
I don't hate you. I just hate this thing you guys call Agile. But unfortunately, you are the one that is going to feel my wrath. And I had to look at this lady and tell her, well, honey, I have the same energy. So let's find a way for us to get through this together. Okay. Because I wasn't brought here and I didn't pick up this contract for you to cuss me out every day. It's not going to work. And that's a real story. What I learned from her was this is the team that they were labeled difficult. What I learned from her was that she just was not educated on Agile. Heard about it. They told her they were going to do it. She went through a presentation, but she still didn't get it. And that's where masters come in, because you have Agile coaches in the company sometimes who come in and do the training, but then they don't bring Scrum masters until like months later. By that point, people forgot about that presentation. They don't even know what I'm talking about. I've been living my daily life. Then here I come, Scrum master that you hired. I'm bubbly. I know this stuff. I think you know it too. We clash because the tech lead role in traditional project management is similar to a Scrum master's role because we're in charge of delivery, right? But in traditional project management, the tech lead was in charge of technical delivery. Exactly. So it kind of feels like I'm bringing you in to train your replacement. And you have exactly.
Right.
So then I have to come in and I have to say, no, that's not what it is.
Together.
Let me explain to you why I'm here. And I actually need us to work together in order for us to actually
talk a little bit about
some
of the struggles or any difficulties that you may have had working with a product owner. Like how has your experience been trying to, I don't want to say in that power struggle, but power is supposed to be balanced across the team. And in my experience, I've seen a lot of product owners that feel like it's their responsibility to take a majority of that power for themselves. Has that been your experience? And if so, speak to how you deal with that and how you kind of overcome that struggle.
So I will say that if I have encountered those kind of situations, it hasn't really lasted too long because I have a system that I start putting into place when I go into companies to make sure that if that's going to happen, I can try to nip it in the bud as early as possible. The number one thing that I do when I go on a team is to make sure that we understand roles and responsibilities from the product owner's perspective, from my perspective versus a tech lead's perspective. And we literally created like a team working agreement, but just between the product owner, tech lead, and analyst. I'm trying to figure out if there was a little bit of a situation. I have had a situation where I had a product owner who basically came in thinking that they were the boss to assign work to people or to tell the team how to do the work. But again, referring back to the roles and responsibilities, educating everybody on the process and asking them to trust the process, and again, building relationships with them. It has helped me to not really have like a bad version of that situation come up yet.
Had any crazy product, so that's good.
So yeah, I don't think. I always tell my students, when you get assigned to a team or you join a job, you should number one make your product owner like your BFF, because that is business. If you think about it from a hierarchy perspective, Agile is coming in and saying, throw your egos at the door. Cool, but at the end of the day, business pays our paycheck, right? They're the ones who keep the money running for the engineers to be able to play in the applications and do whatever they want. So I always try to make business my best friend, because also if you ever get in a situation where IT is basically saying you're ruining their life, business can come in and say, no, she's making my life easier, so I want to keep her.
IT to tell.
Right?
So we got one question in the chat. How have you mastered teaching the Scrum framework as far as accountability versus managing the team? So you understand that, or you need me to maybe paraphrase? So you're going into a new team and
paraphrase a bit.
You have to teach them the framework, and so maybe they're deviating from what the framework is. So how do you hold them accountable to the framework, right, and the roles and responsibilities, but not manage them? Because there's kind of a fine line to walk between holding them accountable to what they're supposed to be doing and like managing them as a manager would traditionally.
Yes. So I would say number one, I would want to look at any internal dependencies that we have that's preventing the accountability piece. And believe it or not, it's usually when you have a manager within that dev team circle, product owner, tech lead, dev team. Tech lead is the traditional sense, but most companies these days still have a tech lead on their team. And 9 out of 10, it might be their manager. So I remember, for example, coming to Capital One and they had managers on the team, and the managers used to assign work. Again, this goes back to our human nature. As humans, if you're continuously telling somebody what to do, you're not going to understand the value. And they're going to become dependent on you. So if for whatever reason you leave, there's a possibility they're going to revert back to what they were originally doing, or they're just going to be stuck, right? So I think by explaining the value of accountability, it helps people to understand that, yes, Comfort is here to help us improve our processes, but ultimately we're all accountable for keeping it in place. So I can give you an example. At the most recent company I had, when I first got there, they had, it's a full stack team. So they do front end, back end, and operations. Because they had to do operations, you have to be on like an on-call schedule. And the devs have to be on call in case anything happens in production. So I thought it was so chaotic because we used to have random people, which are our customers, coming to us, but they would come through the developers. So obviously they said we need a process to make sure that we people know where to go whenever they have questions, because they can't keep coming to me. It's interrupting me from doing my work. So I went ahead and created a process called a production support process. We had people who were on call. We had a support channel that we would refer everybody to, no matter who it is, outside of our bubble. We would rotate people accordingly. But ultimately, I asked everybody, we have documented the process. Now I need all of us to make sure that we're adhering to this process and we're educating people about it too. After the first sprint, we did a retro. Devs were so exhausted. Some were even complaining of burnout for that various reason. We still are having random people reach out to us to do random things, and it's distracting us. Second retro, same thing. Third retro, I literally stopped them and I said, if I was to leave this company, you guys would go back to the same exhaustion that you guys were having, because last week X, Y, and Z came to you, and instead of you reverting them to our production support process, you took the bait and you did what you have to do. But now you're coming to me and telling me that you're exhausted. How am I going to help that? Right? Because at the end of the day, professionally and personally, we are only accountable for ourselves and what we contribute to whatever process or situation that we're in. So I think if you explain things to people, one, in a language that they would understand. Two, if you explain it to them and they don't get it right then and there, allow them to go with whatever process they want to go to. And then once you retro, go ahead and regurgitate the fact that, hey, we talked about this and you decided to do it your own way. Now you have to be accountable for your actions, because I can only control myself. I can't control you. But at the end of the day, in order for us to all succeed, we're all dependent on each other. So again, that goes back to us learning about the process But again, you have to build relationships with these people so that you can speak to them in their language, and it'll be easier for them to retain the information. I hope that's so important,
right?
Correct.
Oftentimes, as a Scrum Master, right, one of the most important roles that we have that I think a lot of people forget is protecting the team, right? And sometimes that protection of the team, we're protecting them from themselves, right? Because someone is asking them to do work that they didn't commit to at the beginning of the sprint. And if they do that, they're going to jeopardize the work that they did commit to. And so in order to, protect the sprint and protect the commitment, we've got to teach them and enable them to say no, right? Or even if we don't teach them to say no, at least we teach them to say not right now, right? If they're not comfortable saying not right now, they can say, speak to my Scrum Master, right? All work has to come through the Scrum Master, right? There are so many ways that we can try to coach and guide the team to protect themselves and protect their time, but ultimately it's their responsibility to do that. And I always try to tell the Scrum Masters that I'm coaching is that it's not your responsibility to make the team do it. It's just your responsibility to make them aware that they can do it, right? Because ultimately, we do the team a disservice if we continue to step in and fight their battles for them, right? Oftentimes I talk to Scrum Masters and even developers and even product owners and a lot of people throughout the organization, right? They want the Scrum Master to step up and have an imposing role where we're kind of imposing our will and forcing the team, if you will, to do whatever it is that the team has either agreed to do or whatever people want them to do. And my thing is let the team fail, right? Let the team fail. There's only so long you can allow your child, your niece, your nephew to ride a training wheels on their bike, right? Eventually, you have to take the training wheels off. Eventually, you have to let go of the back of the bike. Eventually, they have to ride on their own. And I guarantee you that the lessons that they learn failing and scraping their knees and their elbows 1, 2, 3, 4 times will teach them so much more than the training wheels that always caught them and always provided a safe place for them to land could ever teach them. And so I think too many business people are scared to let the team fail because of what it would look like or what it can mean, when we're really just doing the team a disservice by not letting them fail and learn those lessons on their own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so funny because I always tell people the first time I heard an Agile coach tell me, if you're going to fail, fail fast. I was like, what?
Right.
Like, what do you mean fail? They don't teach you to fail in school. They teach you to pass. But again, that's why we tell people Agile is a mindset. In the traditional project management framework, people would get fired if they failed their projects, right? And it created this fear factor in people. And that's why I always tell people corporate has a bad rep because of horrible project managers. I'm sorry, it does. Because you create this fear factor in people because they feel like, I'm going to get fired, I'm going to get demoted, I'm not going to get my promotion because I didn't do X, Y, and Z, and now I'm being calibrated on it. No. Ultimately, if you don't have happy people, none of the processes you put in place are going to work. You're just going to have a bunch of unnecessary processes with so many unhappy people. And
the other funny thing is
go crazy.
When there's not that psychological safety in there that the team can fail and still get up and move forward, people start gaming the system, right? People start making the metrics fit the narrative that they want it to fit. And so we have a funny question that came up in the group earlier this week that we were discussing. So I want to get your feedback on this and see what your perspective is. I don't know if CL is listening today. If CL's not in the group, somebody send CL a message that we're talking about. Let's say you have a team, right, that commits to 5 stories, okay? Each story is 5 points. You're not going to have to do any math. It's not a velocity. It's not a capacity question.
Oh, okay.
Just throwing it out there, okay? So the team finishes the first 2 stories.
Okay.
But when it gets to the 3rd story, something comes in mid-sprint that the product owner says is an emergency and you guys must handle it. We try to push it off to the next sprint, but no deal, right? So we've got to take in this particular item to work on at this sprint. All right? We have 6 things, yes.
So at this point, we have 6 things.
The third story that we were going to work on, and that we had began working on but didn't get to finish, let's say the team has completed approximately 3 points worth of work on that story. Okay? At the end of the sprint, when the team finishes the new work that got pulled in, you and I know that there's going to be carryover. They're not going to finish everything that they committed to if they bring in new work without putting out old work, right? Without putting something else back into the product backlog. What do they do with that 5-point story that they partially completed? Do they get partial credit for that story and maybe 3 points worth of credit for that story, and then split it and then put the other 2 points into the future sprint? Do they carry the entire story over? Do they say they completed it? If they like, what should they do with that story that was partially completed?
I would say it depends on how strict you are with the team. Ultimately, once we've started the work, breaking the work, especially towards the end of the sprint, is frowned upon. But ideally, I would just have them go ahead and break it up into 2. If breaking it up will still make us meet our definition of done for that story, right? So if we can break the story and say, for the 3 points that we did, we still met part of our definition of done.
If it's valuable,
but we still have a functionable deliverable. If it's still valuable and we can say we met the definition of done, okay, we can break it up. But if us breaking it up does not make it
someone
valuable,
might push back and
it's
say,
going to have to be a
but we're not getting credit for the work that we did.
Yeah.
But our velocity is down this sprint.
Because you still did the work. It's still logged in Jira. We still have,
right?
But
what is the number one
factor for performance?
Delivery of value, right? That's the number one
the
indicator
deliverables,
of progress.
Whatever we're delivering. Yeah. As long as we're still delivering, that's fine. The velocity is just a frequency of what we're delivering. Right. So, yeah, the velocity went down, but we still delivered a lot of value, and we pleased the product owner because we took something in mid sprint and we didn't take anything out. Now going forward,
and we got to coach the team to like stand strong. We need to stand together as a unit and fight this.
Stand strong. We're not doing it. No. No. Yeah, I hate situations like that, but those are always learning moments where you can come in and just coach everybody and reinforce the values and the principles and why we're doing it. Because to your point, the team does have to push back. And unfortunately, that's the hardest part.
It's not in the nature.
Oh, God.
Right?
Telling these developers to push back, I'm like, just make me a developer. I'll push back all day. But I can understand where the resistance is, because at the end of the day, you're not a manager. You have no control from an HR perspective over them. So they're going to listen to whoever could ultimately affect their job. So their business, right.
Sure.
So I completely understand it, but that's why you have to work both ends. I'm going to have to coach that product owner first, because I need them to understand, if our velocity's down and you're coming to heart me about our velocity because you use it for whatever magical projection you're trying to do, you know why you affected it. But at the same time, developers, I always tell them, I don't want you to suffer in silence. Okay. Because I legit had a developer who went MIA this entire year from January till last month. He literally worked 20 days. It's to the point where we didn't know if we had to send a wellness check to his home. And he said he was just frustrated out of his mind. And he's not the kind of person to speak up. He felt like it's not, you know how I would say, it's not my father's company. I don't have to do anything, but he was frustrated as hell. He didn't have another job. He just checked out. Right. And that's the human aspect of working in any kind of environment. It doesn't even be corporate that people don't consider. Mental wellness is very important. So on top of us saying, yeah, we'll take on this work, you have to be realistic with what you're asking people to do. And we have to be able to have an open dialogue, because ultimately, yes, we can deliver it to you,
Sure.
but next sprint, we're going to be so burnt
Absolutely.
out. We're not going to do anything.
I got a
So
couple
you
more
have to
questions
weigh
that I
your
want to ask
options.
you really quickly. First one, tell me about some of the dependencies that your teams have had to deal with, and how you've handled those dependencies for the team, or how they handle them for themselves.
So the most recent dependencies that I've been working on have been application dependencies and misalignment. So basically, think about it from the perspective of this application is dependent on this application in order for us to reach the customer. So in order for us to make a change on this application, that application has to make a change first. But this application, the developers on this application are not patient. So they just want to hurry up and do their change. But what happens is we're now blocked in integration testing for like 2 weeks because the other team hasn't done their changes. And in order for us to push changes to the customer, they were supposed to do theirs first. So now we have 2 weeks. Yeah. So these days, those are the kind of dependencies that I'm seeing, but that's usually with teams that are new to Agile and have not gotten the rhythm yet. And I thought maybe it was just this team, but I think now, based on the students that I've been working with, it's across the industry, because most companies are just kicking off their transition. Yes,
I've got a specific question here. How does a team move forward when the team has to do their own QA, but for for each other, but there is no QA on the team nor a QA team? Whoa, that sounds convoluted. Oh, really?
Yeah.
So how do you guys get QA done? There's no QA. There's no QA person on your team, and there's not a QA department. So you've got developers who don't have QA experience doing QA. Is that what you're telling me?
We're full.
Okay.
Yes. So I had to do. It was very challenging, I'm not going to lie, but I had to partner with the tech VP to do an Agile Reboot. So as part of the Agile Reboot, we actually brought a guy who used to be a developer, transitioned to a Scrum Master. He used to be a developer, then he was a QA manager, then he transitioned into becoming a Scrum Master. So he knows the aspect of all three. So he was able to come in and teach the team BDD, behavioral driven development, so that you develop from the tester's perspective. So what we do now, as part of our workflow, as we're picking up our workload, we have to consider any capacity that we need to do testing. And as part of our definition of ready, we have to try our best. Well, actually, we implemented automated integration tests for certain stories or issues that we work on. And for the manual testing, we try to make sure that it's as clear enough as possible in the acceptance criteria, so that whoever is going to possibly pick up that story to test understands what they need to do to test, or we write it in Gherkin.
Given when a user logs into their account.
Given I click the invite button in Zoom, when I click given I want to invite CC to the Zoom call, when I click the invite button, I should be able to get a link so that I can send it to her to join Zoom.
But it makes it easier for testing if they're written in Gherkin, right? All right.
But it's tough. Yeah. Especially UI team. No, I said especially if it's a UI team or a UI issue.
Sure. Quick, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being or 0 to 10, 0 being nothing, 10 being expert, how well versed are you in BDD?
Oh, I'll give myself a strong 4.
Okay. How about TDD?
TDD, I would say at least an 8.
Okay.
Because it's to me, it's a little bit more straightforward.
Sure. We're gonna have to bring you back for a special session on TDD.
No.
How about CI/CD?
Oh, not at all.
How about DevOps?
DevOps, I would say, again, a strong 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good stuff. Good stuff.
TDD and DevOps really goes hand in hand.
Hand in hand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna close it out.
Well, let me go back to that answer about QA. When you're working with devs that have to do their own QA, the number one challenge that you're going to have is, one, just getting a dev to want to test, because most devs don't want to test. Yep. They'll test their own code, but they don't care about testing other people's code sometimes. So just getting over explaining the value of them testing, because they're looking at it from a dev perspective. All I have to do is just make these code changes and I'm done once I get my approval. But once you get them to understand that we're a Scrum team, and in order for us to reach the finish line, you have to help your teammates. It's easier for them to understand that, okay, it's not just about me doing the testing. I have to test their stuff in order for me to get my credit anyway. So let's just go ahead and get it done.
Sure. In closing, what are some words of advice that you give to people who are trying to get into this industry and trying to traverse all of the difficulties associated with getting a job and becoming an agilist? Because like I said, 99% of our audience here is going to be, Black African American people. So what type of advice would you have for them?
I would say if this is something you truly want to do, don't get discouraged. I sound like I know what I'm talking about, but I tell you, I don't feel like I do. And I'm 6 years in the game, right? Sure. You even have people that have been in this game for years. But the number one thing you have to remember is that this is the kind of career that is going to need you to be an advocate for continuous learning. You're not ever going to know everything. You could perfect Agile at the company that you're at now. You're a champion. You're doing everything. The moment you switch and go to a new company, there's a possibility you might feel like you don't know anything, because everything you tried at your last company just keeps failing. So there's a lot of experimentation that has to be done. But lastly, you have to know your personality type and you have to know where you fit in, because sometimes you not getting a position that you're going for could solely be your personality. It's just not a fit, right?
Yep.
And you have to trust that whatever position you're going into is right for you, but you also have to be open to learning, and you also have to be open to failing, because you're going to fail a lot.
Let me ask you this. Tell me about this logo that is behind you.
Oh, yeah. Ara. So I also have a luxury online boutique called Shopara.com. I launched it late 2019, and 2020, I just ignored it because all of us were in COVID and we didn't know what the hell we were doing. So I'm just picking it back up. We relaunched in July. So I'm just now getting back into the groove and doing what I'm doing. But I partnered with a luxury distribution group. So I sell most of the luxury European brands like the Gucci's. So I sell Prada, Gucci, all of them, most of the ones that are made in Italy, I have. But now I'm slowly going back into looking at the luxury Black brands, specifically the African brands. So I just finally launched Tokyo James, who is a luxury Nigerian brand, and he's really huge. So I'm trying to bring more light to the other luxury brands, because I'm just, I feel like luxury is a lifestyle. It's not a specific brand. So I'm even about to dive into homeware. So I have like glasses, like this hand-blown crystal. I don't know if you can see it. You probably can't.
You hold it, when you hold it right there.
Yeah, it has like a blue hue that goes down to the stem.
Sure.
Yeah, just little stuff like that. I like nice things. So I feel like my audience doesn't really care for the brand. We just care for really nice things. And the three pillars that we stand on is quality, craftsmanship, and authenticity. So check it out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Tell me a little bit about the program that you guys have, your Agile coaching that you do.
Yes. So like I said, I do one-on-one private Agile coaching. I did it all of this year, but I'm exhausted. It takes a lot out of you. So I decided after getting a lot of feedback from some of my students that I should probably start doing group coaching, kind of like what you're doing now. But I'm doing it more so in an immersive workshop fashion. So like I always tell people, to get the certification is not hard. To get the job, to me, is not hard. I can easily coach you into getting a job. But once you get a job, there are a lot of practical, tactical things that you must know so that you can easily pivot around, and also know little things for you to build your confidence, right? And sometimes it's better for you to do it in a group session versus on a one-on-one basis, because I can tell you stuff all the time, but if you hear other people's perspectives, sometimes it's better. And also sometimes when we're going through simulations, that's when you have real questions to ask, because you're actually practicalizing it. Because I'm not a theoretical learner. I'll tell you that, number one. I learn better when you throw me in with the fishes. So let me learn how to swim. And if I don't swim, I'll go down to the bottom and find my way to come back up. So this is going to be our first one that we're doing. I'm hoping to get some feedback. I partnered with Nimi because I've known her for years, and she's one of the Agile coaches that I've worked with for years. Whenever I don't have any space in my program, I usually refer people to her and vice versa. So I'm really excited to see how it goes. We have a couple of spots left. So if any of you guys are interested in talking more or joining our workshop, it'll be really hands-on, and you'll be able to learn a lot, even if you're not certified yet.
Perfect. Where can they connect with you on that?
Yeah, so you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I think you added it in the, was it you added? No.
I haven't put it here, but I'll paste it into the chat now.
Yeah, so you can reach out to my LinkedIn. You can follow me on IG, all things Coco. Or I can also post can you post my email to them?
Sure.
Yeah, you can email me and I'll reply.
Wonderful. We got one more question that did come in before I let you drop off. So when you have a QA team, when they're estimating stories, do you not consider testing in your story pointing?
You said
when you do have a QA team. I'm going to try to clarify, Tiara, and you can let me know if I'm right or wrong. When you do have a QA team that's external to your team, do you include QA testing when you're story pointing your stories?
If the QA team is external to my team, no.
No. Because your team's definition of done is everything up to QA.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's all you're going to point.
Yeah.
And then you'll hand it off to that team, and they'll bring that in through sprint planning, and they'll potentially look at it and story point how much effort they think testing is going to be on that. Right?
Right.
And so that'll go into their velocity. And so, yeah, when we story point, we don't story point for all the work, just all the work that our team is going to do from the time we pick it up to the time it meets our team's specific definition of done.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why definition of done is very important. Definition of done and definition of ready. From my experience, no matter what company you go into, that's one of the number one thing that they ask Scrum Masters to implement: definition of ready and definition of done. Because if you give an engineer a ticket, they'll work for the rest of their life. They will make stuff up and they will make changes. So sometimes you have to give them a period.
Sure.
Okay.
That's hilarious. Yeah. They'll work for the rest of their life.
I'm telling you. I know a developer who he will just go dead silent, and you'll find him in the code and you're like, what are you doing? You're just making changes everywhere. Yeah. So sometimes you have to give them guardrails and say, here's what I want you to do, and here's where you need to stop.
Right. Right. Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, I think that's it. Comfort, I want to say thank you for your time and thank you for the information that you've shared with my group. I look forward to working with you and Nimi on some upcoming projects that we've kind of discussed. And we'll be in touch. Whenever you're ready to come back, you've got the link to schedule. If you want to come back next week, come back and rock with us next week. We'll talk about TDD, we'll talk about BDD, we'll talk about all the DDDs and the and the everything. And really just thank you for your time.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. I appreciate it. And if you're interested in the workshop, you can come on over. It's going to be, like I said, very interactive questions and answers, but we're also going to throw you in some simulations to see if you can sink or swim. So
Wonderful. I love it. Everybody reach out to Comfort on LinkedIn or via email.
Thank you guys. Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right. What's up, y'all?
Man,
I enjoyed it. Yeah.
She was like very, very awesome.
And her internet connection was popping. Like she wasn't lagging.
She's awesome. Very knowledgeable. Even if she says she's not, she is.
I mean, again, when you go to these, and that's why I was trying to tell. That's why I told Mel no in the chat. I don't know if Mel is still here. Let me see if she's still here. Oh, Mel done dropped off. She said, "Screw you, Vic. I'm going." But sometimes we get into our heads and we want to like study like everything and be perfect at everything, and like it's just not gonna happen. We're gonna try to reach out to everybody and read every document and read every article while we're in the thick of it. And it's like, I guarantee you, everyone who's been through this program, you guys have more information than I had when I was interviewing and when you guys were listening to my interviews. When you guys were listening to those AAA interviews, the Gap interview, the what's the other interview? Jewelers Mutual interview. Like, y'all have more information than I had when I was doing those interviews. So if you feel like you still need more information, now you're going into analysis paralysis. You're just overanalyzing this situation, and more is never going to be enough. So I don't want you guys to get into that mode and feel like you got to talk, because there's a million coaches out there. There's a million training programs. There's a million people that you could potentially talk to. But at some point, you just have to have the courage in yourself. And just like Comfort was saying, like the thing that we have to overcome with most people isn't like understanding the knowledge or the information. It's normally like the stuff that's in here. Like a lot of times people just don't feel like they have the heart to do this, or they start feeling that self-doubt and they don't feel like they can do this. And so that's the thing you got to overcome. And that's the thing you have to be like bold about, and just go out and just do it. Just shoot your shot. Just shoot your shot.
Awesome.
All right. Anybody have any questions for me? Any closing feedback?
I have a question in regards to the question I asked in the chat, because I was not aware of that. And I don't know if my QA team is taking their subtasks and story pointing them.
Gotcha. So if the QA team is acting as a Scrum team, are they a Scrum team?
Yeah, they join our Scrum meetings.
They join your...
They join my daily stand-ups, retrospective, everything, because they are part of... We have individual QAs for each team.
Okay.
So
you have individual QAs for each team. So those QAs... So how many teams do you have total?
4. 4
teams. How many QA members?
4 per team.
4.
I mean, 1 per team. We have a lot of QAs, but...
but just for you.
Yeah, I have 1 per team.
Right.
Yes.
So the QA who's joining your team's stand-ups and ceremonies, they're testing that team's story specifically?
Yes. Unless another team may need some help. Another QA may need help testing some other things on another team. She tests my thing specifically.
Okay. And so the way you guys are doing it right now, you're not story pointing. When your team story points, they don't include the QA work in it.
They're considering testing. Yes, we do.
They are considering testing.
Yes.
Okay. Well, because that your QA person is a member of your team, and it doesn't leave your team until QA is done. Is that correct?
Right.
Then you guys are doing it the right way.
Okay.
the way you wouldn't do it like that is if QA was its own separate team. Like if you have 4 QA members, they sat in their own cubicles, they had their own stand-ups, they do their own sprint planning.
And the thing is, they do their own stand-ups, but they also join my, like I have a different QA that gets on my calls for each of my teams. And I have never asked, do they make their subtasks? Alex, turn it down or go in your room. They make their subtasks inside of our tickets, and they may estimate the amount of time that it may take them to test it, and inside of the subtask, but I haven't paid attention to it. But yes, I know that they have separate stand-ups with their manager, because they do sit by themselves. The 2 that are on site, the other ones are offshore, because we have a contract with the company called Geeks for Less, and they're our QA people.
Sure. So I guess the question that I would ask is, are they truly...
I really want to know that now. I'm going to ask, like, what does your stand-ups consist of?
Yeah, and their QA, is it 15 minutes? Do they do sprint planning? Do they, like, have whip limits? Like, or is this really just like a staff meeting that they have? And it's not really a Scrum meeting or a Scrum team, but that's the closest thing that they
Because I was like, oh, gosh. Because I just created a chart for story pointing, and I told them that when they story point, they have to consider testing.
Sure.
In that story pointing. But but we have designated QAs.
Gotcha. All right. I'm interested in finding out about that. Good. And that'll be a good conversation for the working call when we figure out the time cadence on all of these. I know sometimes we're stepping on that working call with this, so we'll have to see about that.
This was so much better than a working call.
Hopefully this is what the working calls kind of turn into, right? So I know you were asking specifically yesterday, and a couple other folks have asked about, like, what is this subscription program? Like, what do we get with that? And so this type of content is going to be exclusive to people who are either, again, in their first 90 days of the program, or people who have subscribed and are part of this Scrum Mastermind ongoing coaching program. So we're going to keep recording content like this, creating it, and we're going to be making it available to you guys, even if you aren't able to join. But right now, while we're getting it ramped up, I'm just inviting everybody. But at some point, this content is only going to be exclusively for the folks who are in that program. So I believe everybody got an email, everybody got a text message about it. A few folks on here have joined the Facebook group who are supposed to be in the Facebook group. If you have subscribed already and you're not in the Facebook group, shoot me a text message so I can get you an invite. If you're still within your 90 days and you're not in the group, shoot me a text message as well, and I'll get you an invite. I think everybody.
You want us to text your regular phone or your 469 number?
You could text either one. The assistant will help get it taken care of if you text the other one, but I can do it if you text me directly.
Okay.
Jeremy, I see you have your hand up. What's going on?
Yeah, so I remember part of one of the playlists touched on the Gherkin language. She kind of went into like real detail. How important is that to really learn that? Because typically we do the as a
right. So I would say I've never had a situation where I needed to know it in my last 4 years working as a Scrum Master or on a Scrum team. It's only come up on a couple of occasions, but it's with I've been on a stand-up when my developers are speaking to my QA about Gherkin language, but I didn't have to get involved in it, right? And so I've never had anybody in the program speak about necessarily needing to know it either. And that's why it's just a blip in the backlog, because again, it's not something you need to know to get a job. It's not something you need to know to go through the interview process, right? Once you start working, just like she said, because every organization is different, and Andrea is going through it right now, you might have to learn a whole new something that just that company does. But that's normal because, even when you're working as a teacher or a nurse, you've gone to school all these years to learn how to do this thing, but you move to a new school district or you move to a new hospital, and they've got a whole different way of doing things. And so it's just part of working in technology.
She said, wait, given I want to invite Cece to the Zoom call, when I click the invite button, so that I can send it to her on Zoom. Baby, that's a whole lot going on.
So instead of as a I need so that, it's given when, then, and like if. Given when, if then. That's what it is.
That's how my team writes all the time. I don't see the original way.
Gotcha.
They never use that. They always use
the gherkin.
Yes.
But it's for it to be clear for the tester, not the customer.
Exactly.
Well, but because my team doesn't have QA and they're doing it themselves, that's how they write everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because some teams aren't necessarily customer facing. Some team are like totally back end technology facing. So there's not a customer that they need to write as a I need so that. Like they're getting technical user stories or technical stories, if you will, and they're delivering technical stories without a customer as we would have it in sight. So it's not necessarily necessary.
So it depends on the role that you get.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Andrea, have you been forced to write any stories, or do you need to know this language to be a Scrum Master on this team?
No, absolutely not. And I was just about to say, like, my team is front end, back end, XI, user experience, user interface,
UI, UX.
Yeah. So it's all of those things combined into one. But then from an alignment perspective, these same people go across 3 projects. So it's mind-boggling. But my Agile coach told me if I get this team together, I'll be able to write my own check. I don't know what that means, but I took it as
a good sign. Good sign. Good job. Somebody else have another question for me? Thought I heard somebody else saying something. I see Mel is back. Mel then hopped off and called the girl ASAP.
Listen,
Mel had a 20-minute.
No, I'm like, listen, she got the info that I needed. She up here talking about being bold. Listen, she found the right one.
And so what I was telling the folks where you're gone is that the information you have right now is more information than I had when I was interviewing. When you listen to the AAA interview, when you listen to the Gap, when you listen to the Jewelers Mutual, you have more information than I need right now, than I had then, right? And I can tell that your personality, you are the person that will forever want to study to perfection and delay your payday and your opportunity for the real world experience. So knowing and understanding TDD at a deep level, hell, even as somebody that's been doing it 5 years, she was like, when we talked about BDD or one of them, she was like, I'm a 4. I don't really know, right? It's not something that we need to know per se. So just because they gassed you up and wrote it in the job requirements, again, at most, you can say that you're familiar with it. You could tell them what you know about it, but you haven't worked on a team that's doing it. Because like she said, there's not a lot of organizations that are doing that. There's still a lot of organizations that are doing all manual work. So that is like the future, and you can get there eventually, but it's not something that you need to know now or something that should prohibit you from being bold, getting out there and applying and putting your feet in the pool.
Gotcha. Okay. Well,
I know you'll study 1,000 more years before you feel okay. I'm finally perfect. I'm finally perfect.
Listen, that's my downfall and my strength. Okay.
Okay. I'm just saying you got a man over there that wasn't perfect when he went in for his, but it's worked, right? And we got 30 other people in the program that I guarantee you weren't perfect. Tiara, are you perfect yet? Andrea, how about you?
No.
Are you perfect?
No. I'm a work in progress.
I promise I ain't perfect either. I promise I ain't perfect, but
I got a bold personality, so I'm determined. Failure is not an option.
Exactly. We know enough to jump out there because, again, I keep telling people, like, a Scrum Master is literally what's in the Scrum Guide, and the Scrum Guide don't say anything about TDD, BDD, CI/CD. Don't say none of that, right? And she even said, like, the most important thing is, like, the human aspect, right? Too many people are worried about all of the other aspects. When do you have the human aspect? Can you connect with people on a personal level and make a team feel valuable and mentor and lead a team? Like, can you do that? That's more important than understanding TDD or CI/CD.
Absolutely.
I think for me, it's about being just believable when I'm interviewing, as far as a lot of jobs ask you scenario-based questions. You know what I mean? Like,
sure,
I'm cool with Scrum, but they're like, oh, so tell me about when this happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got 18 years on your resume.
Well, don't put 18 years on your resume, one. But two, like the scenarios that you use should be the same scenarios every time. You only need about a good 5 or 10 scenarios, right? And if those scenarios are the same scenarios every time, after you've told that story 2, 3, 4 times, like, it's gonna be like clockwork for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be like clockwork.
Yeah, I get it.
And we'll get there when we get to your interview prep mode, and we'll do some rapid fire stuff.
Listen, I'm one of them people. You know, I'm a teacher. I can make up stuff top of my head. Like, I typically be acing interviews, but with this, I'm like, can they tell? I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I'm just playing.
You got to get out there and find out.
Right.
When you get out there, you're gonna find out.
I'm gonna organize it.
Oh, thank you.
I'm gonna interview.
They gonna see teacher, and that's gonna be a plus.
A word.
That's for sure. Like, they ate it up for Andrea. They ate it up. They ate it up. All right, that's it, y'all. I'll see my 8 o'clock people tomorrow, and my 9 o'clock folks, I'll see y'all on the 9 o'clock call. And I guess we're gonna call it a wrap.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.
Victor,
yes, ma'am.
I'm not gonna make 9 o'clock now.
Okay.
Look, now I need to go get everybody ready.
Now I got to do everything I was supposed to be doing.
I was like,
gotcha.
Good, but I'm not gonna make it.
Cool. Because you're still, are you subscribed, right?
I did subscribe. Okay, let me tell you.
Okay.
Come on, girl. We have to go take a shower. Here, sit down. So I did subscribe. Hey, baby, hold on. I watched the videos. Remember I told you about watching the videos, and I was asking about the attachments and stuff?
Yes.
I think this is just feedback. This is only my opinion, too, though.
I received it.
Okay, so I think that the Trello board still, I like it better. I almost think that you probably just added the videos to the Trello board and call it a day, because it kind of helps people go through the process. You get what I mean?
For sure.
It kind of mimics it. Remember when I was like, I get it, but I don't even know what's going on. So I think like them being able to move from your, you see your product backlog, you're going over to your sprint. Hold on, baby. You know what I mean? Just go through the. Daddy don't want to go to the game. Okay, because you got to go to sleep. Okay, so I'm sorry, guys. But yeah, I think that may still be easier. So I was like, I may still go in conjunction. Now, what I did about the other one is that it kind of shows you in releases, and I would have just kind of put that for the whole week. You know what I mean? That sprint. Right. It helps me keep like a flow. But I think the Trello board
ties it all together.
I do.
And so this is what we're struggling with, right? I'm struggling with protecting the information that's in Trello, because when it's in Trello, it's easily shareable.
Gotcha.
Right? I don't have much control over what people can do in Trello as much as I do in the other system. But yes, Trello and a backlog are ideal. So I'm trying to come up with a way that maybe I'll have just the images or the titles on a Trello. And I'm also trying to find a way to automate it, right? Because every time I onboard somebody, it takes like 15 to 20 minutes for me to onboard them.
Gotcha.
Because I got to set up the Trello, I got to set up the this, I got to do the thing. And with the new system, when they sign in, it's all automated. I don't have to do anything. They get all the information that they need automatically. So I've got to find a perfect balance. And maybe that balance is removing all of the sensitive information from Trello and just having it as the assignments and the pictures, and allowing people to have that. Maybe that's making people make their own Trello boards. Maybe that I'm trying to find that balance. I've been talking to a few people and working with a few things, but I am in agreement with you that I do still want people to have access to a Trello board so that they can see it.
Yeah. Because like I said, I got excited that day, and then last night I got locked out. I ended up clicking over and it knocked me out, I guess. And when I was trying to get back to the call, and I'm sorry, I was locked out. But I was like, well, if
that happens again, text me, because of the subscription thing. I'm trying to slowly find ways to like reduce people's access to certain things.
Yeah.
And so the folks who got updated, weeks ago that they needed to subscribe, like they're losing access to some things. And so the meetings are being locked down and people are being either put in a waiting room or they're being locked out totally. So again, we're still trying to go through some of this stuff.
I go in a waiting room, but then it completely wouldn't even let me
wouldn't let you in.
It just said it was locked out. But yeah, so that
text me if it happens again.
Okay. I just wanted to share that and I forgot. But I was I want to make sure that just feedback to know that you're refined.
Sure.
And so I was like,
sure, I received it.
And that's just for me. But I was like, I think that the Trello makes it easier to see and to get familiar with the Scrum process. The whole the system versus the other one is just there. But I kind of was marrying the two. If that makes sense.
Sure.
But okay. But yeah, I'm about to go put kids to sleep, so I'm not gonna log on.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night. Oh, I was going to say this too. We're recording these videos, so if you're not able to attend one of these interview sessions, they're being recorded. We're editing them, and they're going to be uploaded to the group so that you'll be able to watch them at a later date, as long as you're subscribed.
Okay, gotcha. And I wasn't sure, so I tried to jump on. Okay, thanks for that.
Sure, no problem. No problem. You have a good night.
You do the same.
Good night, kids.
Tell them bye.
Bye. Oh man. Ugh. Oh man. Yo. What's up? Not much, man. How's it going? Getting something to eat. Oh, okay. Are you